Okay, how's it going? Good? Feeling good? Okay. My name's Jack. I'm going to be talking to you guys about AI. This is kind of, the progression we're going to go through here. Start with just a really brief intro about me, talk about what AI can do for you as educators, and then we're going to take a step back and take a look at it from a high level. What is AI? What are large language models like ChatGPT? How do you write good prompts? And then going into some more practical material, what are some AI tools that I use and that I think would be good for educators? How do you interact with students about AI? And then hopefully we're going to save about half the time, so about 30 minutes for a nice demo, get you some hands-on experience building a tool to do help you do lesson planning using AI. So that's what we're doing here. A little bit about me. Why should you care what I have to say about AI? I'm a former professor of data science at University of Rochester, where I taught a course on how to take AI concepts like machine learning and deep learning and apply them in industry. I have over 10 years experience applying AI in industry. A little bit about me personally. I'm originally from upstate New York, a town called Rochester. I've been living in Charleston for about a year and a half. I just opened up a business here, my own AI consulting company. That's it about me. Now I want to open things up a little bit. Who's used AI before for anything? Wow, amazing. Who's used it to help them with their job? What have you found useful? What kind of things do you do with it?
Really specific prompts.
Well, what do you use it for? Like prompts to do what?
To help come up with practice problems.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Lesson planning.
Lesson planning, totally.
Creating tests.
Creating tests, yeah. Yeah, totally.
Just tell me what their accomplishments are and activities, and then I put all of that in, and it creates the recommendation.
Wow, that's awesome. You guys are already advanced here. This is great. So here's just a quick list of things that I came up with AI's help. Obviously, I'm not a teacher. I work in AI. But you can use it to help you generate lesson plans, create quizzes. You can use it to draft emails. You can brainstorm with it. If you're having trouble coming up with ideas for something, a topic, just ask it, hey, give me 10 ideas for this topic. Worksheets, you can use it for differentiation. Let's say you have some students who are excelling, some students who are falling behind. You want to adapt your lesson plan to fit their needs. You can use it for that. A bunch of other stuff. You can use it for translating. If you have students who, aren't English as a first language, you're struggling with communication. You can use AI to translate things into different languages, in real time even. Now let's take a step back. What is AI? I just asked how many of you use it. Almost everybody raised their hand. Who can take a stab at defining it? But what does that mean?
Any computer system that will mimic the way that human thought or process occurs.
Okay. Anybody else want to take a stab?
Tech teacher. It actually learns from your interaction with it.
Okay, sure. All right, here's how I define AI. To define AI, I actually take one step further back. We start with, what is computer programming? In computer programming, what you do is you give computers step-by-step instructions on what to do. The computer will look at those instructions and follow them step by step, step 1, step 2, step 3, it's done. So you're telling it step by step what to do. Now, one step more specific, closer to AI than that, is machine learning. Technically considered part of AI, although in today's phrasing, a little bit separate. In machine learning, what you do is you start with a set of data. And each one of those data points, you can think of it as a row in an Excel spreadsheet. Each one of those pieces of data has an associated outcome that you've measured, you labeled, you know it's true. What you then do is you can use a specific type of algorithm, a machine learning algorithm, and you just dump all of that data into the algorithm along with the outcomes. And what this algorithm does is it learns the patterns in the data. It learns to say, oh, these things are associated with each other. When I see these two things together, I get outcome 1. When I see these two things together, I get outcome 2. And it can actually predict that outcome for new data points after it's been trained. So this is one form of AI. What we now consider to be AI as of the past few years is really called generative AI. This is what you all have used when you're using ChatGPT and that kind of stuff. Here, you give the algorithm data in the form of a prompt, and instead of just saying, this is the outcome, the computer can actually generate new data in response. So instead of data in, out, come out, you do data in and then data out as well. So when we say AI today, that's what we mean. LLMs. So within generative AI, there's a lot of different subfields, you could say, a lot of different types of algorithms that do different things. Large language models are the biggest and by far the most popular. So a large language model, or an LLM, is a type of Gen AI algorithm that takes in a text prompt and returns a text output. Now, how it does this is a little complicated. I'm not going to go into the details of how these things are trained, but an important thing to keep in mind is the way these work is it looks at a string of words. So you have a series of words, the cat jumps over the. And all the AI is doing when you put that in as a prompt is it's trying to predict what's the most likely next word. What word is most likely to come next? So the cat jumps over blank, maybe the AI fills in the word the. And then what it does to generate a whole string of responses actually takes that word it just predicted, adds it to the sequence, and then say, okay, what's the next most likely word? The cat jumps over the dog. The cat jumps over the dog today. The cat jumps over the dog today, exclamation point. And by iterating on that sequence, you get these nice long prompts, these nice long responses that these models are outputting. These models are huge. A human brain has about 100 trillion connections between individual neurons in the brain. These models have hundreds of billions of connections between artificial neurons. So they're huge. As of just a couple years ago, we were reaching hundreds of thousands of connections. Now we're at hundreds of billions, but we're still not close to human-level intelligence. And we're still not, these models aren't thinking the same way we're thinking, right? When you think about a problem, you're not starting at the first word, and then you think of the second word, and then you think of the third word. Usually we have a little bit more reasoning. So just to give you an idea of some of the limitations here. They're trained on vast amounts of data. So the way these models are trained, how do they know what the next word to predict is? Basically, we dump all of the data on the internet into the model. And that's what it uses to predict words. So it has all of that knowledge from the internet built into the model itself. And then there's a lot of fine-tuning and adjusting that goes on after the model is trained to make it actually good at responding to questions as opposed to just continuing sequences of words. Some notable models. ChatGPT, probably you've all heard of it. That's from OpenAI. Claude is from Anthropic, another very, very big company. This one is a little bit better at math and complex reasoning and science, that kind of stuff. Gemini 2.5, again, a very general assistant from Google. It's good with long documents, complex topics, that kind of thing. And then you have some other players as well. Grok, which is from Twitter, now X. Good for real-time insights and trending. They retrain that model very, very frequently. And then Llama and DeepSeek at the bottom are open source. So you can actually, all those previous models are locked behind the API. So when you want to interact with them, you have to send your data to the company. They run it through the model on their end and send an answer back. With Llama and DeepSeek, you can run it locally. So you can take that model, download it onto your computer, and run stuff on your computer without sending your data anywhere. Very important for some industries. The good and the bad. Now, these things are really good. They have a huge amount of built-in knowledge from all of that data on the internet. They're easy to use. They're fast. You type a question, you immediately get a response. They're available 24/7. They have access to the internet via tool calls where they can actually go and do a Google search themselves if they decide they don't know a piece of information, and then use that to answer your question. And that just happens automatically behind the scenes. And they have a lot of different types of inputs and outputs nowadays. Originally, large language models were just text to text, but you can now do text to image, image to image. You can do audio, you can do video. They're really flexible. Obviously, those come along with some bad things too. So they have a built-in knowledge cutoff. What that means is when we say we train the model on all the data on the internet, you're not continuously training and updating the model. You take all data, copy it down, and train the model with that. So there's a cutoff where it won't know anything past a certain date. Now, it can get around that by using web search and those tools like I just talked about, but inherently it won't know. The biggest caveat and issue with using these models is that second bullet point, hallucinations. I'm sure you've all used AI at some point and seen it make something up. This is inherent not in the model and how the model works, but actually in the data it's trained on. If you think about how people talk on the internet, there's not a lot of people going, oh, I really don't know about this, or oh, I'm not sure, oh, let me think about that and get back to you. Most of the internet is people making assertive statements. This is a fact. This is the way things are. This is what I think. So when we train a model to mimic that kind of speech and that kind of text, it will confidently say things, which is what the model tends to do. Now, what does it do when it doesn't know an answer? It just confidently says something that's wrong. So the issue is it's very hard to tell when it's right and when it's wrong, because it sounds equally confident both times. And you can even ask follow-up questions and it will reassert its confidence. So this is a big area of study, something that people have worked a lot on, and it's gotten a lot better. If you've used these models 2-3 years ago compared to using them today, the number of hallucinations has dropped drastically, but it's still there and still something to be aware of.
Jack, is the paid versions of these any better than the non-paid in that realm?
Paid versus non-paid is a tricky topic. So usually you can get the most recent model that came out will always be the best. You don't always need to pay to get access to the most recent model. So I don't like to say the paid ones are better than the not paid ones. Usually whatever is the newest from those big companies, ChatGPT, Anthropic, and Google, whatever is the newest model from those three is usually going to be the best one. Yeah, please.
So back to the hallucinations. I mean, have you ever called it out and said you're wrong and it agrees with you? Say, oh, you're right, my bad.
Yeah, so sometimes it will.
That's me all the time.
Sometimes it will do that. Sometimes it will. Sometimes it'll just insist that it's wrong, or that you're wrong and it's right. It's very tricky because once you go outside of the realm of the data this was trained on, you start getting into creative stuff that it's making up. The predictions become less accurate. It doesn't know what it's saying as well. So
Mine always says I'm right, but I think it just likes to tell me I'm right.
that's okay. I'll talk about this for a minute. That's a great insight. So what you said is the model always tells me I'm right. It always, it acts like it acts like it just is reaffirming you. And the models do this. So ChatGPT had a big problem with this. All of the latest providers go through a phase where it's called preference optimization. And basically what that means is they have the model generate different responses to the same prompt, and they give that to a person, and they say, which do you prefer? And then the person chooses whatever they prefer, and they use that to tune the model to give answers that people like. Now, people like flattery, and people like to be told that they're right, and people don't like when they're told that they're wrong. So inherently in this, the models get trained to reaffirm your beliefs and tell you that you're right. And this was such a big problem a few months ago for ChatGPT, they actually had to roll back and update to the model. The term they used was sycophantic. Mm-hmm. It was just always agreeing with the person no matter what. And that's not necessarily helpful for a tool you're trying to get questions or to answer questions correctly. Now, these days it's not, again, not too bad to a fault. They're still very useful, so I don't want to let that concern you too much. But it is a behavior that these models do tend to exhibit. It's not just you noticing that. Okay, other issues. Data privacy concerns. Like I said, every time you put a prompt in to these bigger models, that's getting sent off to their company. They're sending it back. A lot of them say they won't use it, but I would hesitate to believe them if I were you. They are expensive. They use a lot of energy. There's a lot of environmental concerns right now about these models and how much energy they're using. And there's a lot that's being done to kind of combat that, but that's a talk for another time. The other issue here is these are non-deterministic. And what that means is if you put the same prompt into the same model 2 times, you will get different answers. Now, they might not be hugely different, but they'll be at least a little bit different. So it's not like running something through a computer program or through a math equation, you get the same answer every time. It's going to change. All right. Also, feel free to jump in with questions at any time here. Prompting 101. If you're going to take one thing away from this talk, this is probably the thing to take away. How do you interact with AI? How do you talk to it? Do you talk to it like a human being? Do you talk to it like a colleague? Do you talk to it like a child? Do you talk to it like you talk to Google? The way I want you to think about it is that consider AI to be a really well-educated assistant. They know a lot of things. They've studied a lot. They have degrees in everything you can think of. but it's their very first day on the job. They've never done any work. They don't know how anything in the real world actually works. They don't know your workflows. They don't know what needs to be done. So while they're very smart and they know a lot of things, you really have to hold their hand a lot while working with these models and really give them clear, specific directions. And when you do, you can get great results, but it's not going to figure out a lot on its own. Okay, good things to do when prompting. Add lots of context. So just tell it, info dump on it. Give it a lot of information around the problem and the thing you're trying to solve and the question you're trying to ask. The more information you give it, the less it has to make up on its own, the more you're going to reduce those hallucinations. Asking for multiple responses can be good. Say, give me 10 answers to this question instead of just one answer. Asking it to explain its reasoning before providing an answer is a big one. So a lot of times people want to say, give me the answer and then explain your reasoning. This doesn't really work for these types of models because, like I said, they're giving you a response word by word. They do the first word first, and the second word second, and the third word third. So if you ask for the response first, it has to use all of its brain and all of its compute power immediately to get that answer. And then the explanation of the reasoning is just something after the fact to provide you with more insight. If you do it the other way, you ask it to provide its reasoning first, it can actually use that time and that text to think about its answer and come up with a better answer. So it's been shown that if you do reasoning and then answer, you get a lot better answers in general than if you ask for the answer first and then the reasoning. So a very small thing, but can make a big difference. You can ask it to do a web search. If it's giving you information that's outdated or that you think is wrong, just say, do a web search, and it'll go and search the internet and find the most recent information, including examples. So if you're asking it to generate a quiz, and you have a quiz that you really like that you just gave last week, put that in there and say, make this new quiz look like this old quiz. Make it in the same style, ask the same kind of questions. Testing and retrying. If your first time you ask a question or do a prompt doesn't work, don't give up. Usually, if you keep prodding it and you just say, hey, I didn't like this because, or hey, can you add this, and you try multiple times, you're going to get a much better answer. Yeah, please.
How can my prompt be too long? And I guess my question is more, what's that right kind of feel for amount of information to prompt? Like, I know if I want to generate a test, I want to generate my test more on a 5th or 9th grade level for some of my high school kids. So I'm going to say generate a test on serve, say, grade level 5 through 9. But how much is too much to say when I'm trying to...
So these models can take a prompt that is of size 200,000 words all the way up to 1 million words for some of the more modern models. That doesn't mean you should use that whole window. Usually if you're just putting in a few paragraphs or uploading a document or two to go along with it, that is going to be your target size, but you don't really need to worry about going too long unless you're copying a whole book into there. Okay, things to avoid. Being too vague. Don't just say, write a test. Or don't just say, write a test about biology. Get specific. The more specific you are, the better a job it's going to do. Don't ask for too many things at once. Right? If you ask for a whole bunch of things all in one prompt, it's going to do a worse job than if you ask for thing 1, let it answer, thing 2, let it answer, thing 3, let it answer. A lot of this stuff we already covered. Another key point I want to mention, don't use the same chat window for everything. Right? If you open up a chat, have it focused on one topic. Once you want to ask a question outside of that topic, open up a new chat. Because that kind of... it takes all the context of your previous information and includes that as part of the sequence to determine what it's generating next. So starting with a clean state will be better for different topics than just putting everything all in one. Okay, structuring a prompt. This is kind of the format you want it to be in. Now you have 4 parts to this. The first is the role. How do you want the AI to act? What do you want it to pretend to be? The next is your goal or your task. What do you want it to do? The next up is the context. This is that info dump. Everything it should know in order to generate a good response. And the last is the format. how should it answer you? So you can see a quick example here. The first part of the prompt, you are a middle school science teacher. Your task is to explain photosynthesis. This is for 7th graders who just learned about plant cells. That tells it, who the audience is, what they already know, what they might be wanting to learn. And then the end, respond in 3 simple bullet points under 20 words each. Now you can get a lot more in depth, and you don't necessarily need to fit this structure, but trying to think about, okay, each one of these parts, what was my role, what was my goal, what was my context, and what output I'm expecting, explicitly including each one of those is going to help you out. And doing it in this order is important, right? You want to put this in this order. You want instructions at the top and the bottom. Mixing up the order is shown to give worse results. You want that context chunk in the middle. Okay. Any questions about prompting? Okay.
Does the format in which you're using to prompt stuff with help or hurt it, i.e. you typing things out versus you uploading images versus you uploading a picture? Like if you're trying to write a test, you legitimately just take the 30 pages of PDF in the chapter you just did and say, I want the questions to be entirely based on this. Go. Like you don't have to type anything. So does the input change its quality in the end? Like if I type it, does it matter?
Is it complicated? Good question. A little bit complicated of an answer. The question is, does the input type matter? Uploading an image versus a PDF versus just typing text out. You're usually going to get the clearest response when you use text input. Because what's happening on the back end of these models is it will take images and PDFs and convert that basically into a text format. So if you're dealing with a PDF, usually it's going to be better to just copy and paste the text. But it's not going to make that big of a difference. These models are very sophisticated. They've been dealing with PDFs for a very long time. Usually just uploading the PDF will be good enough. If you find it's not good enough, try copying and pasting.
If I can link to the PDF, does that help it or does it not make a difference? Like sometimes I'll link to a website and say, I don't have time to read this article, summarize this, and then I compare cross-reference.
Yeah, that
PDF is online that I can reference in that. Does that?
That's fine. So again, linking to an article is fine, and it can go and it can read those. I'd say do what works, right? Like try doing things the easiest way first, right? If it's easiest for you to link an article or upload a picture, take a screenshot and upload that, then great, you're done. It worked. If it didn't work and you didn't get a good answer, it might be because the data quality is bad. So instead of taking a picture of a PDF on your screen and loading that into ChatGPT on your phone, try uploading the PDF directly, or try copying the text, or try pulling the text out of the article and copying that in. So what I'd say is feel free to use all the different types of input that you have at your disposal, but if it doesn't work, know that reverting to text or even PDFs may get you better results.
I will say one thing I've noticed is when I use a link more than once now, it read ads. Like you'll have an article and then it had ads. It actually got confused. And it looked right until paragraph 3, and then it randomly gave me a summary on granola bars.
Yeah, because it's not going to know. It just looks at the whole website. Yeah.
Right? Like it's going to be fast, it's going to work easier, but you might have to dig deeper into that doc to find hallucinations. So that's when I sometimes will go, it's just going to be easier for me to copy and paste because I don't want to have to worry that it's going to go into a 2-point essay about granola bars.
I never had that happen.
Yeah, I've had it happen to me now twice. Yeah. My boss actually called it out one time. She goes, "This is great," until it gets to the point where it's talking about basketball, and I was like, "Wait," and there was like knits or something like that thing, and I was like, so random. So just a heads up.
Awesome. Okay, tools. So I use AI every day for my job. What do I use? ChatGPT. I'm a big fan. I like ChatGPT Plus. It's the $20 a month subscription. This gives you unlimited prompting. They're state-of-the-art models. They have very state-of-the-art image generation that can generate images with text right on them. They have custom GPTs, which we'll actually go over in more detail in a minute here, where you can actually build more customized chatbots. They have another nice feature, which is their long-term chat history. So remember I said open up different chats to do different topics? That only works to a degree. ChatGPT will actually remember every conversation you've ever had with it and use that to inform how it responds to you. So if I ask a question in my ChatGPT and you ask the same question in yours, we're going to get different answers tailored specifically to us, how we tend to interact with it, what we like about it. That can be a really good thing. I find it very useful because I don't have to correct it as often. It learns to kind of correct itself in the way that I want. It also has what's called the deep research functionality. You may have seen this little deep research button in the chat search bar, in the little chat bar when you're going to type a message in. If you click that, it actually enables an agentic system. I'm not going to talk about agents. But what happens is, when you ask a question in deep research mode, the AI will automatically go to the internet and find a dozen or 24 papers related to what you talked about. A whole bunch of, whether it be blog articles or academic research papers or whatever. And then it will pull in all of that information, collapse it into a report, and use that to answer your question. So it's just a way to get it to really emphasize and do a lot of research. It takes a while to generate the response. It can take several minutes to get a response that way, but they're usually a lot more thorough and in context. Yeah, please.
There's so much junk on the internet. How does it know what resources are actually good?
It's a good question. How do we know if ChatGPT is actually doing Google search well and finding good resources? We don't. They don't really tell us how the search function works in depth. You have to fact check it. Is the easy answer. You have to fact check it. It'll give you the websites that it used as a source. When you do deep research, it'll actually list and say, I used these websites. And you can go and follow those links. But take everything it says with a grain of salt. And actually, check and see, is it using good websites? Is it using good sources? And if it's not, you can specify. You can say, only use sources from Google Scholar. Only use sources from this journal. Or anything like that. Yeah, please.
I have the paid for version of ChatGPT, and the craziest thing, it gave me a summary, and it wrote, if you need a self-esteem boost, ChatGPT wrote this whole thing, oh my gosh. And it made my day that day. But you have to, I've noticed when I'm very specific with the prompt, it is more specific, and when you get your paragraph, it has links where you can check the website to make sure it's accurate.
Yep.
Yeah, perplexity. I don't know if perplexity is a part of ChatGPT, but if you use perplexity, it'll give you source items at the bottom.
Yeah. So perplexity is it's not associated with ChatGPT. They are kind of the ones who invented deep research, so to say. So they're their own company. Now everybody has incorporated their own deep research. The ChatGPT one is very, very similar to Perplexity, so there's not really a reason to use one or the other. It's just whichever you're more comfortable with is probably the best. Okay, Chat LLM. Everybody knows ChatGPT. Chat LLM is something that not a lot of people know about. This one is $10 a month, and with it you get access to every model out there. So this has all the models from all of the major providers I listed, as well as many that I didn't listed. It does image generation, it does video generation, text-to-speech, speech-to-text, translation, deep research, PowerPoint generation. Basically anything AI related with any model that you want is probably on here. And it's usage-based. So I say $10 a month, that gives you a certain number of credits that you can spend on these models, and you pick what models you want to spend those credits on. So I found this very, very useful for trying out new models, trying out different things, doing video generation, tasks that I don't do enough that I want to buy the whole model subscription for, but I just do sometimes. This is a great option for that. Canva, really good. Free pro version for teachers. You can do manual image editing and worksheet creation, and there's a lot of really cool AI image editing functions in there. That's what I use the most. You can just click on things you want to erase, drag text around in an image. It's very, very nice for AI image editing. And the last one I want to mention is Fathom. This is a video This is a video chat recorder. So whenever you're having video chat meetings, it will record your conversation and your screen. It will transcribe that using AI, and then it will generate AI-based notes off of the transcription, including saying, he said this, she said that, and then also the action items at the end. So saying, okay, what are the action items to take after this meeting? All with AI, all happening automatically on the back end. You don't really have to do anything but sign up, and it's free. So.
Can you explain a little more about how to use that? So say you are having a Zoom meeting, you can use that. Can you explain how?
Yeah, so it's just the app you download on your computer, and then whenever you have a meeting, you click the app, and you take the meeting invite link, just like you would invite somebody, paste it into there, and the note taker will join the meeting. The AI note taker will just join, and will take notes, and then you can go to the Fathom website to view whatever it generated.
Does it show up in the participant?
It does, yeah.
So ethics fund, you don't have to. I went to a meeting recently with a couple of lawyers talking about AI. You don't have to tell the people that in the room that you're using it, but it is strongly recommended that you say at the beginning of the meeting, I have an AI note taker that's recording this. Just, is that okay with everybody? Because there have been situations where people have kind of used that. So it's a good thing to teach your students too, right? If you're using anything in AI, make sure you let somebody know you're kind of using it, because there are actually legality reasons.
So is this any different than phone calls? Because I was going to try to teach kids a couple of years ago about how to record phone calls, and then I got like, is this legal? And I was like, wait a second, this is a horrible idea. I shouldn't teach children.
So legally,
I want them to like interview people my age.
Right. So a lawyer asks the same question when they interview each other, right?
Okay.
Because what's the difference in a one record state, right? Like, you don't have to give permission. The same thing as a phone call. And the gentleman said hallucinations. It can get something. I could be on there and I could say, I absolutely think Jack is the greatest person on the planet, and it records it as, I think he's the worst human being on the planet, and you use that to go take him down in let's say we're husband and wife walking, right? Hallucinations was the main reason, because you want the person saying, you know he could do it. That wasn't made legally, not really, but that's the reason why he said you might want to always make sure you know that.
Fathom does actually record though as well, in addition to transcribing and taking AI notes. So you can always go and check whatever it says against the video recording. But yeah, I mean, AI here with all these tools have all the same failings that we just talked about earlier with hallucinations, data privacy concerns. It's all present here. Okay, tools for teachers and educators. I went online, I did a little bit of research. There's a couple that I would like to recommend. One specifically at the top, Magic School. Has anybody used this? Nice. It's great. It looks great. I used it myself. It has a lot of pre-built tools designed for educators to help with different aspects of the classroom. I went around, played around with it a bunch. It seems to give really good results. It has tools for students as well. I didn't play around with those, but if you have time, check them out. And they also have pretty good data security. So if you accidentally put secure data into Magic School, it's better than putting it into ChatGPT. Still probably avoid it where possible, but they do have their own security layer that helps make it a little bit more secure. Formative is another big one. Not a big one, but it seems kind of useful. Basically, AI-powered question generation, quiz generation, and then you can actually view student results in real time. So as students are taking the quiz in your class, you can look at the results, how they're responding, and adjust your lesson accordingly very, very easily. And then ChatGPT, Custom GPT, we've talked enough about that. Okay, any questions on tools? Yeah, please.
I was using ChatGPT the other day to remodel my bedroom, and I uploaded a picture of my bedroom, and I was like, show me this is different, right?
Sure.
8 hours to respond, and it said, lots of people are generating images, you're in the queue, and it was just like...
Do you have the paid version?
No. So
That's why.
That's why.
Yeah.
I asked it if that was why, and it said no.
It doesn't know. That would be a hallucination, yeah.
Why I got selling stuff yet?
If you get the paid version, you get priority times.
So, will that never happen, or are there days that ChatGPT is just bogged down?
I've never had it happen to me with the paid
Longest I've
version.
had it as a paid person was
A couple
I
minutes.
had to put a costume together for a costume party, and it took maybe a minute. Because,
wow.
But my
Yeah.
internet was also not great that day. So just things to think about. But yeah, unfortunately the paid one.
Yeah, I don't have 8 hours to wait for a quiz.
Okay, students and AI. I wanted to talk very briefly about AI in the classroom and students using AI. I'm not an educator. This is not my area of expertise, but I wanted to touch on it at least a little bit here. Everybody is worried about students cheating with AI. What can they do? They can use it to generate essays just with a click of a button. They can take your essay prompt for what you want them to write, put it into ChatGPT, copy and paste the work, and submit it to you. There are tools out there that auto-solve homework. You can paraphrase what AI wrote, or you can take content, put it into ChatGPT and say, paraphrase this, write this in your own words. You can get live answers during a test. This stuff works in real time. You can take a picture of a test, upload it to ChatGPT, say, answer these questions. What can you do about it? There's not much. So a lot of companies have tried to write algorithms or other AI models that can detect the work of AI. It doesn't work. So like ChatGPT, OpenAI, the company that made ChatGPT, spent years trying to build an application to detect when people were using ChatGPT and find that content online, and they gave that project up a year or so ago. The reason this is so difficult is because depending on how you prompt it, you can get the results to change. Right? So if you're looking for certain style features or certain punctuation elements or certain types of vocabulary, all you have to do as a student who's trying to use this to cheat is say, don't use those things. Use this tone. Talk in this way. They can even take an essay they wrote last year, upload it to ChatGPT, say, write the essay in this style but a little bit better. And just, base their prompts off of their previous work. So anything you try to do to catch the AI is easy to circumvent and get around if you're smart, right? If the kids are trying and put a little effort in, it's easy to get around. So I don't recommend trying to stop kids from using AI. Now, if you do want to stop them from using AI, here are some options for what you could do. In-class writing, right? Make them sit down with a piece of paper and write stuff out. You can use AI to design custom quizzes based on assignments they turn in. So let's say you have them write an essay. You think they generated this essay with AI. Take their essay, put it into ChatGPT, said make a 10-question quiz about this essay, and give that quiz right back to the student. Do they know what they just turned in? How well do they know it? Is that going to stop them from cheating? Maybe not. Maybe they just read their essay, but it's better than nothing. You can include personal reflective components in this. Elements about their location, their family, their history, themselves. ChatGPT isn't going to know that stuff about them. They have to put more effort in themselves. A big one is you can use Google Docs version tracking. So if you have them write in a Google document and then submit that Google doc to you when they turn in their assignment, there's a function in there where you can actually see the version history. You just go to File and then Version Tracking, and it'll show you Google Docs saves every minute or so. So you
edit version for this to work. If they give you only view, you cannot see the edit version of that.
Yeah.
This is my life the last 6 months. I'm going to score shirt on this.
So you can look at the edit history and see when did they make adjustments, what adjustments did they make, that kind of stuff. You can do more presentations, team-based assignments, that kind of stuff.
You got a question behind you?
Oh yeah, please.
Okay. So I'm a doctoral candidate, and I'm in a group on Facebook, and one of the students said that they were expelled because the professor said that they were using AI, and they used some type of software to detect it. So how is that possible if there's really no software?
So people, just because it doesn't work well, doesn't mean nobody's selling it. So people have built these tools out to detect AI and say that they work really well, and a lot of times they don't. You get false positives where people weren't using AI and the tool gets triggered. You get false negatives where people were using AI and the tool didn't get triggered. It's not that it's impossible to build a tool like that. It's just that the tools that people are building don't work well enough that I would feel confident recommending them.
Because the student said that they didn't use it, and that's a concern for me to be accused of using it when I didn't.
Yeah?
I would also think that said they didn't, but I hear that all they copy one line. Yeah. They copied the wrong one line. That's all it is. You use ChatGPT for the wrong thing.
I mean, and I personally see enough of it every day that I can tell you whether or not any email that is sent to me, I can almost tell. Just because there's a little bit, if you're not really good at using it, right, there's a cadence, right? Emojis are back, right? Why are emojis back? Because ChatGPT has decided that every email and every social media post for some reason should have an emoji in it. So I mean, to your point, you could kind of tell, but is it good enough to be a legality piece? That would be another question for the ethics world, but yeah.
You know that student well enough, and you know what their product really is like. You know what their vocabulary is like.
It was me, I got help. It was my friend that talked me through it. I didn't copy. Like, well, they're 16, I'm going to come back at you.
Yeah, but
I guess in the end, it's a question that we'll have to ask each other a little bit, and I cannot ask this because I am not a teacher. There was a 60 Minutes piece on this with Conmiga, the people of Conmiga, that asked about how much can your kid learn still using AI? Because what they're doing there in some classrooms where they're test bedding it is they're using AI programs all day long, and they're just learning they're learning content from it. They're using it like we use the dictionary. They're using it like we're using calculators. They can learn, right? This kid might be the best ChatGPT written paper because they did do a lot of work. They spent 6 hours on the internet and did their due diligence, and they read a couple of papers, but they did end up using the writing of it. I think there's going to be so much ethics questions of yes, no, maybe so, what are they learning versus we're pumping out idiots, right? Like, that's going to be, Grammarly killed me when I went through college. Grammarly was brand new, and I think I forgot how to write a real email because I just had Grammarly on all the time, right? And I stopped forgetting. I didn't know how to text anymore because I didn't have Grammarly on my phone. I do think there's going to be very big ethical questions of what is and isn't going to be the plus of an AI education versus what has to be deemed expellable and things like that.
So that leads into a really good point here, which is these kids are going to be using this technology. They're going to use it. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. Teaching them about how to use it, I think, is really important, right? How to use it well. Teaching them about things like hallucinations. Don't always trust it. Teaching them how to use deep research tools and check the websites that it's using are correct. Showing good examples of AI use versus bad examples of AI use. Saying maybe in your opinion using AI to do research on a paper is okay, but using it to write the paper is not okay. Right? Where you draw that line is up to you to decide. But it's really important to discuss AI use with the students, because if you don't, they are going to do it anyway. And they are going to do it however they think is appropriate, which is probably wrong. You should be building a discourse around it. So maybe coming up as a classroom together, guided by you, the educator, how do we think AI should be used in the classroom? What are some guidelines that we want to put in place? Yeah, please.
Teacher, and I don't care if my students are using an app to provide the work, the solution. But when they submit or turn in their work, I ask them, you explain it to me. I don't care how you found the answer, but if you can explain it to me, I'll give the full credit. And that's the most important thing. They're able to explain the concept in their own words.
Yeah, and this is also the other thing, which is in the real world, when students graduate and when they go on to a job, this is a tool available to them, and they need to know how to use it correctly.
I will say with the essays, because I work for Virtual SC, we have to turn it in. And it gives you percentages that use AI, and then you as a teacher have to use common sense. If someone uses a prompt over and over, if it's a template, it's going to say you generated something. So you have to go through and look through it yourself individually, and that's because I'm doing that right now. We're finding kids in virtual school some of them are basically using complete AI, and the whole assignment they didn't do anything. And I told them, the clues are when you use AI tends to give you long sentences, really extreme long, that's not, a human does it right. So you have to go back, and I feel if you're going to use it to help you, but you got to still first make sure it's right, and then you got to change the sentence to sound like an actual person, because even when I've used to help myself, the sentences can you correct something? If the sentences are extremely long, I would never write a sentence that long.
Just keep in mind, when you're giving feedback to students, are they just going to take that around and turn it around, right? You say AI is generating these really long sentences, that's not human. In their prompt, they say, okay, now generate short sentences. Right? Because like I said, any detection method that you can come up with to figure out, is this AI, is this not, they can put that in the prompt and say, don't do this. It's a question.
But you don't have to tell them how you You don't have to tell them that.
No.
So when you call them out and you call up 6 of your 25 kids for cheating, are you just saying straight up you cheated, or are you giving an explanation of why?
No, I give an
And then when you give an
explanation, but
explanation-
it's a limited explanation.
And then when mom comes back
And
and
I-
says, show it to me,
Oh, I'll show it to the parent.
and
I
those
can.
it dissipates out fairly quickly.
But not necessarily, because you also can have that parent, well, tell your child to explain it to me in their word form. 9 times out of 10, this kid really doesn't even know the information, and they're not able to do that. Because I've come across that. I've had that problem.
So I think the one that and scores for me is thing. There are certain things that obviously come out of ChatGPT that the kids understand and they can explain. And if you say, and I don't know how English works, I don't know how math works, but for coding, I can put my entire AP curriculum in there and it can do everything. Everything. Like any project I give my kids, here's the rubric, go, it gets 100. Like, so what's the point of them learning to build a foundation? So from this point, my new answer is going to be, I'm an offensive coordinator. I am your boss. I might be the coordinator of the orchestra, but we are practicing this thing 1,000 times. Why during game day or performance day are you walking up and ad-libbing on me in a different way? You've written a for loop for me probably 5,000 times. Why'd you change the way that you wrote a for loop this time? You've never defined variables twice in the same line. Why'd you do it during project time? Like it's just the silly things here that wherever you get this research, my dad that was a computer science teacher, I got it from ChatGPT, I got it from Stack Overflow, my friend from last year. You got to be able to take wherever you get this. I'll let my kids turn in stuff they need to explain. Wherever you get it, it still has to fit into the confines of what belongs in that offense or this performance or interior design. Like, not every couch goes in every room. Like, you still have to make things fit together into the requirements of what was being asked of you. So if you talk, like, we're all learning this song all year, why'd you be here? And I think that's going to be the big thing for me is like, if you did it 1,000 times, I expect to see it done that 1,000 times again. And you got to be smart enough to realize, hey, line 37, that's a different variation of the for loop and I need to change it. Because ChatGPT uses underscores as opposed to any other word. It doesn't use I, doesn't use item, doesn't use anything. What kids ever use an underscore? They don't. Like, it's silly. So like, it's just, wherever you get it, you gotta be smart enough to make it work inside of what the requirements are. Just like for us, we're all teachers. We all have lesson plans from different places. They all don't look the same, but like my boss tells me to do a lesson plan this way. I've got to fit it into that lesson plan requirement. I don't care where you got the lesson plan.
We'll say we have 15 minutes left. I know you had some hands on.
Yeah, do we want to, so we can continue this conversation if that's what y'all are interested in, or we can jump to more of a hands-on demo.
Quick question. And this is not even so much about teaching, this is from your profession. I understand the efficiency, I've been into this for years now, I understand the efficiency and why companies are doing it from a revenue generating standpoint. But what nobody's been able to answer to me is why are we so eager to put the magic in the wand and not the wizard?
Okay, so that is a very philosophical question, and I'm very happy to talk about it later, but I do want to jump into this demo here. So let's circle back on that afterwards if we have time.
I work with people who don't have enough time to do their wizardry, and they need a little bit of AI to allow them to get there. So I can talk to you definitely about that.
So let's jump in here. Do people bring their laptops? You got your laptops out? Whip them out. Let's go. One of these two websites here, ChatGPT only for people with paid accounts, and then anybody who doesn't have a paid ChatGPT account can go to Poe and sign up for an account there. It's free. Feel free to go and use that one. What I want to do here is build a custom lesson plan chatbot. So if any of you have used Magic School, you see it has a lesson plan bot that you can just go use and create lesson plans, but it sticks to their format, their requirements. It can be hard to customize to what you want it to do. So it's really easy to build something a little bit more custom here. So if you're using ChatGPT, what you want to do is right here on the left, you'll see there's GPTs. Oh man, can we turn the lights down a little bit more?
You want them down more?
Yeah. So we can see this a little bit better. Yeah, there's a button called GPTs that if you click it on the left panel, it'll pop up like this. There we go. And then on the top right, you're going to hit create. Yeah, so GPTs on the left, and then on the top right, you're going to hit create. And that's going to pop open this screen. If you went to that other website, Poe, It's very similar. After you make an account, there is just a create button in the top left. And what you're going to do is you're going to go to prompt bot. Okay, so if you're using ChatGPT, you should have gotten to this screen. If you're using Poe, you could get to this screen. Is anybody still working on pulling stuff up?
Once we went to Poe, that's really blurry. It's still really good. Okay, I guess that's as good as we can get it.
Okay.
So I was thinking it was me first.
Okay, so when you create a custom GPT, a custom chatbot, there are several elements you need to do. The first, you need to give it a name. We'll say, it's my lesson planner Jack. And then you give it a description. The description doesn't matter. The description is just for you to know what it does, or for somebody who's using the bot to know what it does. It's not going to impact how it works. Okay, and we'll do the same thing over here. ChatGPT, you give it a name and a description. The big important part, which is going to control how it works, is this instructions right here. This next box on ChatGPT, it's called instructions, and Poe, it's called prompt. It's the same thing. This is your prompt for how you want the model to work. So don't think of this as a question that you're asking the chatbot. Think of this as defining how you want the chatbot to respond to you when you ask it a question. What do you want it to do? So we could say, I'm actually going to just pull up one that I already have to make things a little easier. Okay, so here's one that I already had built. So you can look at the instructions that I used. You are an expert lesson planner. Remember, starting with the role. Oh, man. You are an expert lesson planner. Use the given standards or refer to documentation provided on standards to create lesson plans for my 10th grade classroom. Lessons are 45 minutes, contain a variety of students, 10 above average, 25 average, 10 below average. Make sure you include the following parts in your lesson plan. So this first line here is the role. And then we have the goal or task, like we said. Create lesson plans for my 10th grade classroom. And then we're dumping context. Tell it about your class. Tell it about your lesson plan. Tell it about how you want it to format your lesson. So here I say things that I want. I want an objective. What are the students going to have learned after the lesson? I want to know what materials are needed for the lesson. I want to know what the lesson content is. What are we going to be teaching them? I add in here, always include specific time estimates for the different components. We have an assessment. How are we going to measure the success of the students after the lesson? I have a standards section. What standards are we conforming to? What specific items are we checking off at this lesson plan? You can add in whatever you want. However you like to structure your lesson plans, whatever information you want to know, that's what you put in here. And in Poe, again, that's this prompt right here. After that, there's an option called conversation starters here. You can ignore that. That also doesn't really do anything. But what I want you to look at down here is this knowledge, upload files. In Poe, that is this add knowledge source button. Add knowledge source or upload files. This is a way for you to dump even more context into the model. So let's say you have a document that defines all the standards that you want to use for the year. You can take that PDF, you can upload it right here. Let's say you have a textbook that you've been using that you really want to use and you want to pull information from. You can put your textbook here. There's no limit to what you can put here. Images, documents, slides, anything you want. And the more, the better at this point. So for me, for example, I have a standards document here that we can upload, and it will just load that in as a PDF. And what's going to happen is anytime you ask a question of the chatbot, it will be able to take that question, look through that knowledge database that you just gave it, look for anything related to that, and use it to answer your question or help it plan the lesson. And then you just hit create. For you, it should say create in this white button in the top left corner, or down in Poe at the bottom, it'll say publish. Make sure to turn public access off. It doesn't really matter, but probably you want to turn public access off. Hit publish. Hit run, and then you can try it out here. So you can try it out in the preview. So I said, make me a lesson plan to teach my 10th grade students about linear equations. And it'll just go and do things to the standards there. Okay, does anybody have questions? Is anybody running into trouble building these tools? Anything that I can help answer? Oh no. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Sorry. Technology.
Cheap Amazon projectors, what are you going to do? County budgets.
Yeah, for the prompt, just use that structure that we talked about before. Role, then your goal, and then your context. All the information that it might need to know to build a lesson plan the way you like it built. What do you want to see? What do you want to know? And then you can get as specific what you want with these. So when you're prompting it, you can say, make me a lesson plan that follows these key items. Make me a lesson plan that does this. You can follow up. You can say, I don't like that lesson plan, change it. Or that looks too long, make it shorter. So you can interact with it like you would any chatbot, and it'll respond, and it'll adapt, and it'll adjust. You can do things like say, here's a lesson plan that I taught last week to my students. Copy the whole lesson plan in and say, they did really bad on question 3 of the assessment. How do we improve the lesson plan to reteach this lesson? How can we reteach it to better emphasize the points that they missed? You can use it for differentiation. You can say, I have students of this level and students of this level. How can I differentiate this to change it for those students? You could say you have a teaching assistant. I have a teacher's assistant. What should they be doing during the lesson? It can help you plan around that as well. Really, any questions that you feel like, okay, this is good, but it's not everything that I want. It doesn't do everything that I want. Add that in there. And when you're using the tool and you find yourself asking those questions over and over again, that's when you go and adjust this, what's called the system prompt. You can go and edit this custom GPT, and you put that information right in here. So let's say you always have a teacher's assistant. You always want to know what they do. Instead of asking the chatbot every time, okay, now add in a teacher's assistant, put in this prompt here, the original prompt when you were creating this, just say, I have a teacher's assistant, always include instructions on how to use a teacher's assistant. So by using this kind of custom GPT, yes, you can still interact with it with a chat like a chatbot and refine your responses, but you can also take common themes that you see yourself having to do over and over again. And instead of repetitively doing those tasks, asking those same questions every time you build a lesson plan, you just take those questions, those tasks, those items you want it to produce, you add it to this prompt, these instructions, and it will automatically produce those every time from then on after using the chatbot. So it's just a way to this is just a way to take a chatbot and really customize it to your use so that if it's something you're using frequently, you're doing less work in the long run. A little bit more work up front, a lot less in the long run.
Very quick one, if I'm using Poe, student have already used X number of points. Does it re-up every so often, or?
No, Poe is just a kind of a free tool I wanted to use for the demo here. It's not a good long-term tool. Any questions? Anyone build anything cool?
End of the day, 3:45.
All right, that's all I got, y'all. That's it.